Hello, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back to a little delayed edition of Squared Circle Speak. I am Ryan. With me is Nathan. And today,
What happened?
yeah, my microphone came unplugged. I don't know, kind of cut out. I'm Ryan. With me is Nathan. And today we're doing our new segment called Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. Where we are going to be talking about a former storyline in wrestling that could have went a different way. And the way they should have booked it or could have booked it. And today we're talking about probably one of the biggest missteps, I would say, in professional wrestling. And it's not just the booking. There was a lot of other issues with injuries and people getting fired and all that stuff that kind of derailed this whole thing. Of course, we are talking about the Nexus, uh, which again could have been one of the biggest, things ever. Instead, due to, like I said, injuries and poor booking decisions and just politicking from certain wrestlers, this whole thing kind of got derailed pretty early on. So we're gonna talk about what they should have done, what they would could have done, and what actually happened, and how we would do it better, Nathan.
All
So
right.
this all started on NXT, which was before it was NXT. It is now, if you're young and you don't really realize, NXT was a game show. It started in 2010, and it was, you know, different.
It was like a tough enough type show with but happened live on TV.
Yeah, and so they had a bunch of people on it. The winner was guaranteed a WWE contract and a championship match at a WWE pay-per-view of his choosing. That's very important.
Right.
They botched that completely in real life. So Wade Barrett would end up winning the NXT on the June 7th, 2010 edition of Raw. They all showed up. All of Nexus showed up. And if you don't know who Nexus, if you don't know who's in it, it was Daniel Bryan, Darren Young, Skip Sheffield, Michael Tarver, Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, and David Otunga were the original members of this group. And very
Yep.
early,
And it let people know, like, so uh Skip Sheffield was Ryback,
yes,
and the rest of them had the same names, right?
yeah, the rest of them all were the same names, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they kind of showed up, caused chaos, took out everybody. Daniel Bryan strangled Roberts with his necktie,
Yeah,
spit in
the
John
ring
Cena's face.
the ring announcer.
Yeah, which was Daniel Bryan being fired, so that was already a blow to this group, having one member immediately fired.
Yeah. Was it? I don't remember, did they just not, I don't know. Did they not tell people what they were gonna do or what?
I guess not. Apparently, like people were upset. I don't know if it was USA or whoever was upset because it's TVPG, and they said that I guess him spitting in his face and struggling with her necktie could have caused issues with sponsors and all that, so they let him go. Uh, this was his absence was explained. Uh, they kicked him out of the group because quote Daniel Bryan had remorse for his actions, and so Wade Barrett kicked him out. So they in the next couple weeks they took out everybody. I think we don't change any of this. I think the way they came in, they took out Bret Hart, Vince McMahon, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes. Uh, you know, I think we keep all this. I don't. I think this beginning first couple months here was the way it should have went. Other than maybe Daniel Bryan getting fired, I think everything else went the way it should have went. With them taking out everybody, it's to prove that they are a dominant force because they're a bunch of rookies. You have to push them as a dominant force, and you have to let the people like the audience know they're going to mean business. So what the bad part is, this led to the anonymous Raw general manager. So
Yeah.
Where the first misstep happened was SummerSlam. They got into a feud with John Cena. Uh, you know, they had a big SummerSlam match. Team Nexus versus Team WWE, essentially. Uh, it and apparently, according to you know, reports, Cena refused to lose. And so they didn't put him over. That's the first misstep. You think this match is fine with who was in it, but I think you have obviously need to have the Nexus go over. And I almost would have made it to where they don't lose a single person in this match, as just to prove to them that they are freaking dominant.
Right.
Because like I said, you've got to push these guys as good as hard as you can and have them beat Jericho, Morrison, R-Truth, Cena, Hart, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Maybe one or two of them can take a pin. But yeah. So that was the first misstep. I think you changed that, obviously. You changed to where, you know, WWE loses. I think Wade Barrett pins Cena at the end to make Wade Barrett dominant and
I
look
mean,
good.
it just makes sense. Like, why have a group like this come in and dominate like that, only to have them all lose like their first feud?
Yeah.
It made zero sense.
So in real life, they lost the next night on Raw. They all competed in one-on-one matches, with the stipulation that whichever Nexus member lost, they would be kicked from the group. And Darren Young lost, which means he was kicked from the group. I don't agree with that. That wouldn't have happened if they won at SummerSlam. So I don't think you need to kick anybody out of a group that's just starting. That's, you're already off to a rough start. A couple weeks later, Skip Sheffield broke his ankle, and so he was out for 2 years. So he was only down. They were down to 5 members in real life by August, and they showed up.
Right.
So this group was decimated early on, losing 2 members, 3 members technically, if you include Daniel Bryan. So what we do here, I think, they have to win some titles. So I think after SummerSlam, whatever the next pay-per-view is, which I think was Night of Champions, I think you have 2 of them win the tag team titles. I don't know who. Maybe you do Slater and Gabriel win the tag team titles. If Daniel Bryan never got kicked out, maybe he wins like the United States title. But yeah, they got to start winning some titles. You think like they can't, if they're going to be dominant, they got to start getting some gold in this group.
Right.
So where they fucked up in real life is Barrett used his guaranteed championship match in a 6-pack elimination challenge. Now, why would a heel use his guaranteed championship match in a match with 5 other people? That makes
Yeah.
no sense.
Yeah. I mean, this was definitely Vince McMahon not knowing what he was wanting to do. He gave him a guaranteed title match, but you could tell he already regretted pushing these guys.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to get it over with. And there was like, oh, we got this thing coming up. Let's let him cash it in on this. Yeah, he definitely should have. It should have been more like a Money in the Bank type deal
Yeah.
where he caught the champion off guard, kind of like, hey, guess what? Next week, me and you, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, it was guaranteed at a pay-per-view was the
Okay.
ruling, but he could still have done it in a Money in the Bank style where this 6-pack challenge happened and then he cashes in afterwards
Right.
and is like, hey, I got the winner. And then I think he wins it here. I think, look, and people may argue it would have been too early to give him the title. He's a rookie. But Brock Lesnar won the title within 3 months of being in the company.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked, and he had a whole group around him, which would have made it plausible that he could win the title. I mean, look, he had 5 people with him. So I think you do
Yeah.
that. I think he wins the title here. I don't think you do this whole he never wins it.
Absolutely not. Yeah, you gotta have him win the belt.
But
And
I think they hold at least the tag team titles here and potentially maybe even like the United States title or 2.
right.
I think they got. I don't like it when groups hold all the gold, but I think in the case of the Nexus, it makes sense for them to hold most of the gold at least because again, they're young, they're crazy, they're at they you gotta like I kept saying, you've got to push them as legitimate threats, and the only way to do that is to have them win. like and you got to have them hold some gold. So that's the way I would have went with that. Uh, and then in real life, he ended up getting into a feud with Cena at Hell in a Cell. Um, he won. Wade Barrett would win at Hell in a Cell thanks to Husky Harris and Michael McGillicuddy making their debuts on the main roster. I would not have done that. I know they felt like they needed more people because all the injuries. Michael Tarver also would be injured and eventually released too, so they would lose another member uh, around this time. I mean, this group just completely had so many issues from the get go here. But I
Yeah.
don't. I think you can do this match. You can do the Hell in a Cell, but make it for the title. Barrett Cena at Hell in a Cell, and I think Barrett wins. And then if you wanted to make it to where Cena would have to join the Nexus, that could work. The way they did it was stupid because he just ended up beating them all up anyway every night. And then, so how do you think this goes, Nathan? With the next, how do you in real life they fucked it up? Ended up getting a one-on-one title match in real life with Cena as the guest referee at Survivor Series, which he would end up losing. So obviously he never won it. Cena would screw him out of it essentially. So Cena would then get fired essentially, but then he came back like a week later. So how would you do this in real life? We have him win it at we have Wade Barrett win the world title, the W title at Night of Champions in September. How does the Nexus go forward in real life or in how they should have done it? Because obviously they completely screwed this up in real life, and I think we need to give them something here. So how would you have done this?
Yeah, so after he definitely, like you said, he should have won the belt. Probably should have won it off of Cena.
Well, yeah, that's what maybe Cena wins the six pack challenge, and then Barrett beats Cena. Is how you do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's how it should have been done. And then after he wins the belt, like you said, a couple of the other ones win some belts. And they obviously can't stay together because they're rookies, right?
Yeah,
So, what you got to do is, you have some dissension. You have some guys split off.
yeah,
I think Justin Gabriel probably could have been a really good face by himself.
he was like for a little bit.
And yeah, so you have him split off. You have Michael Tarver. He's kind of a hothead, so you have him split off because he can't get along with anybody.
Yeah,
But as it dwindles down, they're separating. But as they're separating, you have Wade Barrett still as a strong heel because he was and should have been the main focus of this group.
yeah,
And because he legitimately could have been one of the top heels in this business.
yeah. Like
And and they didn't really give him the opportunity. So you have to establish him. So he needed to not only win the belt but hold it, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. And when the group disintegrates, okay, when it disintegrates, you have him form a new group, which they kind of did. They did the core thing,
yeah.
but you have him form a new group with different guys to feud with some of these guys that left him in the Nexus.
Well, yeah, and they kind of did that. But it was with CM Punk and the new Nexus, and they kind of feuded with the core a little bit in real life, but it was not as at the level it could have been if Barrett would have been booked correctly. Uh,
Right.
and maybe Punk is the guy, but he's a face. Maybe Punk is a face, and he takes these. I don't know if a Punk led face group would work. But maybe Punk gets with the new guy with a couple of the guys, and then yeah, he has Wade Barrett has maybe then Wade Barrett takes some of the new rookies, like McGillicuddy and Harris and some of them. I don't know.
That's what
Uh,
I think should have happened. Instead of CM Punk, it should have been Wade Barrett that just continued the Nexus with the next group of guys and basically brainwashed them
Yeah.
kind of like to follow him because he was already, he was from the first class of NXT, and now you got the second class, and he recruits some of these guys, and then the other guys don't even have to necessarily be a group, but he's just feuding. You have like the old Nexus members versus the new Nexus members, but they're not really a group. They're their own. They're all their own things. You know what I mean? So that way they're all getting over. Wade Barrett's getting over because he was the leader of this new group. And, you know, in the end, I guess either would you have him lose or win?
I mean, I think the heels always need to lose.
Right.
Wade Barrett has the Nexus. They all break off, so then he gets the second group. He gets McGillicuddy and maybe even Ezekiel Jackson he can get like he did in real life and Husky Harris, and then he loses them, and then eventually, he can go to his other gimmicks. But he could be a top heel with these groups, and whoever's running the new group of the old guys or whatever beats him, and then you've got a whole bunch of new talent that you've booked properly that is established that can work. You got Otunga, who's not the best, but he can talk, and you had Slater, who was a comedy guy. Everyone in that group filled a role in WWE, and it's amazing that they just didn't do it right. But I think, yeah, Barrett could have, he held the title with say he held it for a couple months. Maybe won it in September, lost it on the road to Mania. And then
Right.
at Mania, maybe he has a match with some of the Nexus guys or something. Maybe him and Gabriel go one on one at Mania to maybe push Gabriel as kind of a single star, right? Then after Mania, he brings in the other people. He brings in his new group, and then they feud for a while. And then after that, he loses. Finally, all the people are free from him. They all break off, do their own thing. Husky Harris can eventually become Bray Wyatt, like he did, and all this stuff. And then Wade Barrett is already established as a heel. He's already established as a main eventer, and he can be on his own finally. Uh, it's just this goes down. This and like the invasion are the two I think biggest missteps that WWE's ever done. You had Mason Ryan. He could have came in with the new group too. I forgot he was ever in Nexus. I'm just looking at it now. I forgot he was in the new Nexus.
I forgot that guy even existed.
But this group was around for a year. Like it's insane how quickly this group came and went in WWE. It disbanded. It started in June 7th, 2010, and it made it as the Nexus until December of 2010, and then August of 2011 they were done as the new Nexus. They made it basically a year, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like they could have stretched this out for a long time. Wade Barrett could have had a hell of a run as champion with the Nexus behind him. He could have been that cowardly heel that had a group behind him until eventually he had to do it on his own and he lost and then he blamed them all. That's how it happens. He has a long run. Let's say he holds it till Mania. He holds it for a long time. Eventually he has to go one on one. He loses and blames the Nexus. So he gets rid of them all and brings in another group.
Right.
Because he gets faith in them because they're rookies and they'll do what he says. Because like you said, there's deception, and they all said, you know what, we're not doing your bidding anymore. You got to do it on your own. And so he brings in the new Nexus. This could have been a 2-3 year long run here for this group if they did it right. Like they could have easily stretched this out for 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
If done right, and then like I said, you could have had all these new stars that you've already established that made sense. I mean, if you look at this group, like who really went on to do much after this? Like Tarver was released. I mean, Skip Sheffield became Ryback, but that was years later. Husky Harris became Bray Wyatt, but that was years later. Mason Ryan did nothing. Otunga did nothing. Like Darren Young didn't do much. he was a tag team guy, and same with Slater and Mason Ryan. Absolutely did nothing. The only two that had any like Gabriel had a little bit, and then McGillicuddy became Curtis Axel. But
Yeah.
like, but like, who they didn't. The only person that came a star out of this is Wade Barrett and Daniel Bryan. No one else became a star really, and it sucks because they all could have been at least something.
Right.
They all had
And
characters. They were all different. Like it was. I don't get it. I guess it's because they were rookies and they didn't feel like they needed it. I don't know. It's just it blows my mind that they completely fucked this up.
yeah, here's the weirdest part for me of this whole thing is they treated them like rookies, but all of them had experience, most of them, and they were all in the developmental already with
Yeah.
WWE. So in real life, like real life, Vince McMahon shouldn't have treated them like outsiders because they weren't outsiders, except for Daniel Bryan. And but that's how he treated them. It's like he bought into his own gimmick.
Yeah.
And he was it's like, okay, you had these guys fight through all this crap to get into this to work their way up to this main roster. Then you put them on this stupid show where they have to act like they're rookies again.
Yeah.
And then you get mad at them because you basically make them feel like they're rookies, and then you bury them. And it's like,
Yeah.
what in his twisted mind made him do that? I don't.
Yeah. I mean, freaking Heath Slater had been in the company forever at that point.
Yeah,
Like he was in developmental for like 2006 is when he
yeah,
signed his developmental deal. This was 2011. Like Heath Slater had been in the company 2010. He'd been in the company for 4 years already when he debuted on the show.
that's
Like
insane.
like I don't get it. Like yeah, obviously like he liked them all, or he wouldn't have put them on NXT and he wouldn't have brought them up. So I don't understand why you would bring them up just to not do it right. Like you know what I mean? Like you had the chance to do like a really cool gimmick here and a really cool thing, and then you completely botched the whole thing. But like you said, treating them like they were second class and they weren't in the same league. But it's like you could have made them that. You're
Yeah,
in charge of the show.
yeah, it made zero sense.
I mean, if Cena reportedly did say he wasn't going to lose to him, that's ridiculous. Uh,
Yeah,
like that's, and it's been corroborated. Young, Heath Slater, Edge, and Jericho all said that that's what happened and that it completely crippled whatever momentum they had. So, and it's true. Their first big match I think it was their first match ever. Like, I think that was their first actual match in WWE and they lost. Like,
yeah,
you can't do that.
yeah, and it's like, who? How did any like who was in this production? Like, who was in this creative where they did that? Like, who? Why didn't somebody stop that?
Yeah. And then it's like you're kicking people out 2 months in of the group. Like, why?
Yeah,
They bring them in and like you caused this set like there was like issues from the very beginning in this group. And it's like I don't get it. This could have made Barrett one of the biggest stars in wrestling. And instead it took him a while to really get going in WWE. Like it took him a long time for him to finally, get to where he needed to be because this Nexus group kind of felt like it held him down for so long that he didn't really get going for a couple years after this, where he finally
yeah,
actually felt like he was something in this company.
right.
And he was, yeah. I mean, hell, Wade Barrett was in the company for in 2006. So like, even he had been there. Like, that's what I don't get. Did did Vince not know who he had? Like, did he not know who was in developmental at all or something? I don't get it. Like, I just these guys have been in the
Yeah,
company for years, and then he brings them up, and he's like, "Who are these rookies, and why are they here?" Like,
I
you
know
brought them up.
it's really messed up. All right, I
Uh,
think that's gonna. I think we've pretty much covered all of it here.
yeah, it's just if it's just one of those things. I look back on it. I was watching some of the clips and stuff, and I was like, man, they actually got good crowd reactions though too. Like the crowd was invested in this because it was different, and the
Yeah.
crowd thought we are in for a change. We're gonna see some rookies, some new blood, and then it was back to Cena and Orton and Triple H and all them. Awful,
Yep.
awful, awful. Ugh. This could have been
All
the
right.
new NWO.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, if you like our ramblings about these kind of things, hit the like button and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time we upload another one of these would you could you should you videos. And we'll see you on the next one.
And if you have any former storylines or angles or anything like that that you would like to see us talk about and maybe say what they coulda, shoulda, woulda done, go ahead and leave those in the comments, and we'll get to them when we can, and we'll do them. If we like the ideas, we're probably gonna like anything you say. But I think this could be fun. There's plenty of missed opportunities in the history of wrestling. So if you have an idea, just let us know, and we will see you next week on Squared Circle Speak.
Later.